Morning, everyone. It's a pretty wet Sunday morning here. Um, First proper video. Yes, I know I'm in my car again. That won't be a regular thing. It's just sometimes that's the easiest place to get a few minutes to do this. So yeah, first video, I just wanted to touch on my own personal mental health journey and what I've kind of been through. Um, but before I do that, I just want to just kind of a valid point that was made to me um, on a Facebook group that I'm part of called Bottled Up Blokes. Tim Cox started it, and it's a brilliant group where men can talk about different things. But basically, one I won't go into too much detail, but one of the guys on there um, was talking about his own journey, and it was addiction and trauma and things like that. And I wrote kind of underneath, I commented saying, well, it kind of something like it makes you it puts things in perspective when you're thinking about your own struggles. But what Tim said to me and what I think is a point to put in this video is everybody's mental health issues, problems, struggles are valid. There's no comparison. There's nobody's got it worse than anybody else, or everybody's dealing with their own stuff. And just because you might not have struggled with addiction, or you might have had an okay upbringing like I did, doesn't mean that you can't struggle, doesn't mean that you can't face issues later on in life. So this culture of comparing to each other and things like that, I think isn't helpful when we're talking about mental health. I think it's something that we need to knock on the head and appreciate that everybody's different and everybody has their own shit, basically. So that's that out of the way. So basically, a bit about me. So I first started struggling a bit around 11, 12 years ago. No, probably before that, to be fair. And it was always to do with work. So I would get get a job, do the training, do the trials, do all that stuff. Uh, do the first day, and then when it came to that kind of restrictive 9 to 5 every day, I would just have major anxiety about it. To the point where I passed up so many opportunities. Things like going away to uni, I never did. I had numerous jobs where I'm easily qualified, got the job. When it comes to it, I just can't face it. And one of the things I've learned getting older is, well, saying that only the last kind of 4 or 5 months, that this is something that I've learned, that in order to kind of not conquer, because we don't think we ever get cured of any mental health issue, really. I think it's always there. It's just we learn to manage it. So in order to manage my anxiety is to go through it, basically. Just tackle it head on and run straight through it. And that's not as easy as it sounds. And if you've suffered with anxiety, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. It's not easy just to get on with it. It's not that simple. So it's a really difficult thing to deal with. So to the point where I the only way that I could earn a living was to go self-employed, where I'm in control. I'm not it was the feeling of being trapped. That's what I always struggled with. Um, and there wasn't, I mean, it's only 10, 15 years ago, but there wasn't any mental health support really out there. I mean, we sort of knew about Samaritans, but I thought I'm not, I don't need to go to Samaritans. I'm all right. I'm just a bit of a pussy when it comes to work. I was thinking to myself, am I afraid of work? Am I a bit work shy? But I'm not. I've never have been. But going self-employed was the best thing for me at the time, and it allowed me to work, allowed me to make money, obviously. But as I've learned now, it's not gone. It if everything fell apart and I had to go and get a job, a proper job, I don't know how I would be. I really don't know. And the anxiety that I've had to tackle the last few months has been unrelated to work, and I'll do that in another video. It's not been about work. So whereas I've approached that totally differently, and I feel like I won that small battle, I don't know how I would be if I was starting a job tomorrow. I really don't know. So, for example, there was a point where we, the landlord on the place we were renting, was selling the house. So we were in a position where we were kind of stuck as to what to do. So it was either a council place or another rented place, but obviously we know the financial implications of that. So at the time, we tried to get a move back down south. This is a good four odd years ago now, 4 or 5 years ago maybe. So we got in touch with them, with what was our local council before we moved to Staffordshire, and they said, right, well, you need to be living here and working here. So I set up a job with Amazon, just the standard delivery driving, and I was going to stay at my mum's, and obviously wife and kids were going to stay back here. And the idea was that I was going to do that for a little while and then go to the council, right, I'm here, I'm working, can we sort something out? So, but twice we went, obviously 2.5, 3 hour journey, we went down, and the plan was to see some of the wife's family, see some of my family, as we would normally on a weekend down there, and then I would stay, they would come home, and I would go to work on the Monday. Pretty straightforward, but both times I had a complete anxiety meltdown, and just couldn't do it. I don't, and it's really hard. When I talk about it now, it sounds so ridiculous, but when you're in it, it's horrible. I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. I really wouldn't. You can't think straight. You're irrational. In that, I suppose you can relate it to a kid just kicking off about stupid stuff, but as an adult, obviously it's a bit different. And the only thing that helps, that stops it, is going, right, well, we're not going to do that then. We'll stick to what we were doing originally. And then it immediately just lifts. But it doesn't solve any problems. And this is the problem I've had. I've been in this cycle since I was a kid, really. I'd go on scout camps, cub camps, whatever, and freak out, and they'd ring my mum and she'd come and get me. I never had that push of just stick it out, get on with it, you'll be all right. So it was always in my head that you kick, you have this anxiety, and then changes will be made, and then it will lift. But it doesn't solve any problems. So, and that's what I've learned recently, and I think it's just important to realise that there isn't a cure as such, but with the right coping mechanisms and strategies, we can manage it and we can live with it. I like to think now that now I'm aware of what's going on, whereas before I would just be like, why am I feeling like this? What is going on? Now I have a better understanding. I can obviously talk to people, which I did when I had my last kind of, I don't like the word episode, but my last kind of, meltdown, which is what's brought all of this on, which I'll talk about in another video. So when that's happened, it's made me do my homework, if you like. So I've gone away, I've researched, I've read up, spoke to people, reached out to people that have suffered, reached out to professionals, and the overwhelming thing that's come back is you can't cure these things, you manage them. And once you, particularly with anxiety, once you let those thoughts, and if you've had it, you'll know what I mean. If you let these thoughts build up and build up and build up and take over, which they do, you will find yourself in the middle of an anxiety attack. If you can, what they told me is if you can acknowledge the thoughts, because if you ignore them or push them away, it builds up. So if you can acknowledge them and say, all right, I'm feeling like this, but it's okay. Anxiety is a lot of what's going to happen kind of thing, a lot of worries about what's going to happen in the future and irrational stuff that you can't control. So once you acknowledge that, and it isn't as easy as it sounds, and I didn't even know what it meant, acknowledge a thought, what does that even mean? But, got there in the end, and I feel like now I'm in a better place to deal with things like that. I wouldn't know what would happen if something come along, but I suppose you don't know until you're in that situation. But at the same time, I don't really want to be in that situation because it's horrible. But I definitely feel like I'm in a better place to manage these things, and that's the point of the video, is that we can manage them and we can get better and we can live with these things the same way you would live with a dodgy ticker, a dodgy leg. You know what I mean? It's not ideal, but you can manage it. You can manage the pain. You can manage your day-to-day life, and that's all we need to do, is one day at a time, and we will get there eventually, one day at a time, 1 hour at a time if you need to. So yeah, that's the point of this video, is that we can manage it, we can get better, and it's important that we talk to each other, because nobody understands it more than someone else that's going through it. I would argue even more so than a counsellor or psychologist or whatever. Unless they've physically been through it themselves, depression, anxiety, whatever, they can only know so much about it. And I stand by that. I can explain my anxiety to anybody, but unless they've been through it, you'll never 100% truly know what's going on. So yeah, that's the first video done. It's a bit of a long one, sorry about that. I suppose it's a good thing once I start talking about mental health, I just kind of go on. So I hope it's found something kind of useful in this. I'm gonna what I'm gonna do from now on is link some charities in the comments that are local to me, mental health charities, as well as like Mind and things like that as well. So there will always be links there to follow, and I'll put my socials on there as well. Yeah, so thank you very much. See you soon.